The past few months have been fairly calm in terms of natural disasters. However, there have been some. On May 31st, 2013, there was a tornado in El Reno, Oklahoma. It was a strong 2.6-mile wide tornado and was categorized as an EF5 tornado after originally being labeled an EF3. It was the second EF5 tornado in El Reno in 2 weeks. EF stands for Enhanced Fajita, and the Enhanced Fajita scale determines the strength of wind based on the damage to that area. The problem with this is that where the tornado struck in Oklahoma, it was mostly open country. This means that there was little damage because there is not much to destroy. This tornado did, however, take the lives of 3 highly experienced storm chasers as well as 15 others. Here is a clip about Tom Samaras, who was one of the storm chasers killed by the tornado.
Before we talk about Tim as the scientist and the man, I want to explain a little bit about what we think happened. I've known Tim for over 2 decades. This is the actual chase car, a Chevy Cobalt, that was being used that day. Photo coming in from one of Tim's fellow storm chasers, our own Tony Laubach. This is a view on the inside of that car, some of the instrumentation. And this is a view taken by Tony Laubach on the same storm. This is the tornado. And I want to show you not only a massive, very unstable situation. This was a mesocyclone, or a big intense storm that was very changeable, going from a big wedge tornado to multi-vortex tornadoes. But look at the roads here. These are clay. When they get wet, they turn into just gumbo and become very hard to pass by. They've had heavy rain in the Oklahoma City area for days. We're talking 5 to 10 inches of rain. On Friday, the tornado area around El Reno had Tim's car positioned just to the south of Interstate 40, just to the east of US 81, out off of the main highway. Now, this is not a 4-wheel drive car. The bigger vehicle that they're using for their lightning research was positioned farther to the northwest for later in the day. The expected path of the storm was like this, and this very unstable storm suddenly took a strong turn. And in talking to Tony Laubach, we think it's very likely that Tim's car may have had either car trouble or been stuck in the mud, and they just simply could not get out of there. Now, this is such a shock because Tim is the safest of any storm chaser there is. He's iconic in this business. This is Tim with one of the turtles, the probes that he's developed. He's a brilliant engineer. And Tim's idea was to always say a safe distance away from the tornado, use those probes, which he'd place in front of the tornado to get video such as this. This is actually taken from the remote probe, a tornado a couple of years ago that went right over that particular instrument. He was the safest possible storm chaser, which makes this so hard to comprehend. Now, a couple of years ago, we spent 4 days together, traveling about 2,000 miles, doing what he loved and what he did best.
Radar indicators severe thunderstorm. Storm's just been severe warning.
This is probably one of the biggest frontiers left in, meteorology.
For Tim Samaras, his son Paul,
it's actually Cherry County,
and their partner Carl Young, the objective wasn't just to see a tornado.
We're trying to understand why some thunderstorms create tornadoes and others don't.
Their quest was to get critical information from these storms to help keep us safe in the future.
I believe I'm the only guy that's been able to collect these measurements routinely every year.
From cornfields to Major League Baseball fields, they had no limit to where or how far they would go.
What we're doing here is really dangerous, but believe it or not, the most dangerous part is all the driving. That's number one. Number two, lightning scares the heck out of me. And then somewhere on the bottom, it's the tornado.
Tim was not simply a storm chaser. He was a scientist with a cause. While he knew what he did was dangerous, he recently told 7 News, when we rode along with him for a chase, that he wanted to help predict these storms better and find ways to keep people safer. It was a challenge Tim and his crew faced with determination.
What I'm trying to do is to help understand how strong the wind field is near the ground of a tornado. And we hand that information off the structure engineer. If the house doesn't fall apart, people are taking refuge on the inside of the home, you might have saved their lives.
Another main natural disaster in 2013 was the rim fire in Yosemite National Park. The fire began around August 17th and was not completely contained until over 2 months later in late October. The rim fire was 348 square miles and the 4th largest wildfire in California's history. The fire was 40% contained as of September 1st, and then 80% contained as of September 20th. Officials believe that the temperature and humidity levels of the area were contributing to the fire. While the fire was burning, there was a ban on any use of fire, including camp stoves and smoking. Many roads were closed, but the park was open for visitors in August. Here's a radio segment about the rim fire and some maps and pictures.
From NPR News, this is All Things Considered. I'm Robert Siegel. The massive rim fire in Yosemite National Park is nearly contained. The fire burned more than 300 square miles in and around the park. One of the crews doing the last bit of work is the Geronimo Hotshots from the San Carlos Apache Reservation in Arizona. You may remember them from last week. We met them just as they headed off to Yosemite. NPR's Kirk Sigler caught up with one member of the crew yesterday on the eastern flank of the rim fire.
Usually this time of year, Tioga Road would be humming with cars packed with tourists wanting one more chance to cross the High Sierra before the snow flies. Instead, it's closed to everyone but fire personnel, cloaked in dense smoke and buzzing with chainsaws. A crew of firefighters in hard hats has just cut down a scorched 90-foot-high old-growth fir tree. Better to bring it down now. It's too close to the road. Burned branches and ash are strewn everywhere. Another crew hooks up to a water truck to douse any last stubborn hot spots.
Yep, scouting line, mapping the line so we can come back later and rehab it since we are in a national park.
As field observer, one of Brian Pippin's main jobs is to make sure embers don't cross this road and ignite spot fires on the other side. Yesterday there were 3. A chopper doused them quickly with water.
On this other side, there's not much to keep it from going, capping this part of the Sierras and going down towards Yosemite Valley.
One ridge over, across one of Yosemite's giant slabs of granite, the Geronimo Hotshot crew has been spiked out for the past 5 days.
Starts going downhill, down canyon?
That's what they said, but
That means they don't go back to the main fire camp 30 miles down the mountain from here when their shift is up. They sleep next to the line they're digging.
One shower so far in 12 days.
Jeff Belvedo is a squad boss for the Geronimo Hotshots, a Native American crew from the San Carlos Apache Reservation in Arizona. He's waiting for the all-clear to hook back in with the rest of his crew.
When I was back in camp today, they asked me, what are you guys doing, mopping up? So what? We're still out there burning. We're out at night, trying to button this last piece up.
Belvedo says he wouldn't have it any other way. It's a sign of just how good this crew is. They're among only a few left digging the last stretch of the containment line on what's become one of the biggest blazes in California history. They dig and clear trees and brush by hand through the night. The work is starting to wear on the guys.
Bad knees, bad ankles, bad foot. Hotshot knees is what they call it.
Being away from girlfriends, wives, brothers, and sisters back home is also starting to get old. But at the same time, most people are used to it. Firefighting is a family affair for many back on the reservation.
Growing up, I used to smell my dad coming home and smell the fire on his clothes.
Belvedo's dad was the first superintendent for the Globe, Arizona Hotshots. It's another crew just up the road from the San Carlos Apache Reservation. It's times like these toward the end of a 14-day assignment that Belvedo remembers his dad used to have it a lot tougher. During the Yellowstone fires of 1988, he once left home for 60 days. But leaving the isolated reservation and going to large, high-profile wildfires is important.
You want to go out and you want to represent, for everybody back home, not just in San Carlos, but the region and Arizona. You want to be able to show people and do a good job out here and stand behind your work and say, Geronimo did this.
The Geronimos will be up here through tomorrow. Then it's a 12-hour drive home Sunday. They may get out on one more fire yet this season, unless the snow starts falling. Kirk Sigler, NPR News, Mariposa, California.
Overall, 2013 was a pretty calm year, and especially for hurricanes in the United States. There were a total of 13 named storms, but only 2 of them became hurricanes, and neither of those hurricanes were considered major. A major hurricane is one that reaches Category 3 strength. Forecasters suspect that this calm hurricane season was due to a combination of factors, including drier than expected air and persistent conditions in the atmosphere over the Gulf of Mexico, Caribbean Sea, and tropical Atlantic Ocean. Here is a clip about the weak hurricane season.
This year's Atlantic hurricane season ends Saturday, and it's one for the history books, delivering the fewest hurricanes since 1982. Forecasters say the drier than expected air combined with wind shear led to this weaker than normal season. The 2013 season will go down as the 6th least active season since 1950 in terms of collective stretch and duration of tropical storms and hurricanes.
Following a weak hurricane season in 2013, 2014 started off cold and with many snowstorms. The white ground and cold breeze was caused by the polar vortex. The polar vortex is an area of high pressure in the atmosphere that rests in the North Pole. It is always there, but gets stronger in the winter. Every once in a while, the polar vortex is forced to move from its normal location. That is when the polar vortex comes south and people feel its effects. Here is a video about the polar vortex.
You spend some time outside, you know it's bitterly cold no matter what you call it. Weather Authority Derek Kevra has more on a weather term we've been hearing quite a bit lately.
Yeah, this term polar vortex is not a new thing at all. In fact, the term itself has existed since the 1930s. Polar vortexes are around every year, but you've been hearing a lot about them lately, really because it just sounds cool. But the patterns are things that we track pretty much every year, especially as we head into the winter. The polar vortex itself is an area of low pressure over the North Pole. Believe it or not, there's actually a polar vortex over the South Pole as well. Then surrounding the polar vortex is a lot of very cold Arctic air. So this is what we're tracking when you hear the term polar vortex. But how does it impact our forecast as we move through the week this week? Well, what's going on right now is high pressure way over there in the Pacific Northwest is pushing the jet stream, shoving the jet stream off to the north. And when that happens, it creates a weaker spot, allows the jet stream to sag farther south, and all that cold air from the polar vortex and surrounding it is allowed to sink down and push down into areas farther to the south. So that is the Arctic air that we're seeing this week, and it's the same exact thing that we saw a couple of weeks ago when we had those very, very cold temperatures. But what's different this week compared to a couple of weeks ago is we now have a strong area of high pressure out in the Atlantic that is holding that cold air in place. Think high pressure on this side, high pressure on that side, that cold air getting stuck right in the middle, and it looks like it's going to hang around for at least the next couple of days.
In addition to the natural disasters that have occurred in the past year, there have been many efforts to help repair damages after natural disasters that have occurred in previous years. An example of this is efforts to clean up after a tsunami struck the American Samoa in 2009. What you see now are pictures from that tsunami. The American Samoa is a United States territory which has a very strong culture. Immediately after the tsunami struck, their indigenous institutions stepped in and began providing aid at community levels. This aid came before FEMA was able to step in and help. Right away, leaders gathered young men to help rescue victims, clear debris, and help to repair the villages. After this disaster, researchers at the University of Colorado Denver conducted a study. The study showed that although not in line with the FEMA model, the immediate traditional response was highly effective and could be beneficial if it were implemented in other places. It has also shown that federal aid should not be the only answer to events such as the tsunami. All in all, the past 12 months have been fairly calm in terms of natural disasters, but there still have been some, along with efforts to repair damages after natural disasters that struck in past years.